Whitehall Palace. The Great Chamber. A summer evening, 1570. 300 candles. The smell of roast meat. Queen Elizabeth I lifts a small sugar sculpture from a silver platter. It is shaped like a swan. It is made of marchpane, ground almonds, sugar and rosewater, kneaded into paste and gilded with gold leaf. She bites into the wing. The sound is like biting into hardened candy. Her teeth are turning black. Her gums bleed when she chews. The marchpane sticks to what's left of her enamel. She's 37 years old, and her mouth is decades older. 3 months ago, Pope Pius V excommunicated her. The papal bull was nailed to the door of Old St. Paul's Cathedral by a London Catholic named John Felton. Felton was caught and hanged that summer. The court at Whitehall is now on permanent alert. Every guest at this evening's feast is a potential assassin. Every dish is tasted before the Queen touches it, and almost every single item on this table is slowly killing the people who paid most to sit at it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the closer you sat to the Queen, the worse your odds of surviving the decade. This is how Queen Elizabeth ate, and almost none of it was safe to put in a human body. Step back. Step outside. The court has many homes. Elizabeth I is in the 10th year of her reign. She turns 37 this September. She moves her court between 5 palaces: Whitehall, Greenwich, Hampton Court, Richmond and Nonsuch. The Fantasy Palace her father Henry built, and she rarely visits. The court of 1570 is wherever she sleeps tonight. The royal household is a city. 1,500 people travel with her. Cooks, scullions, grooms, chamberers, ladies-in-waiting, secretaries, bodyguards, almoners, tasters, musicians, scribes, gardeners, pages. They eat, sleep, work, fight, and die inside this moving institution. At the head sits her chief minister, William Cecil, the man who has run her government since 1558. Beside Cecil, a younger man is building something the rest of Europe will not have for another generation. Francis Walsingham is creating an intelligence network with paid informants in every major Catholic court on the continent. No Catholic conspiracy will reach English shores without Walsingham seeing the letters first. He is building this because of what just happened. In the autumn of 1569, 2 Catholic earls of the north, Westmoreland and Northumberland, raised an army of 6,000 men and marched south toward the Queen. The rebellion was crushed by January. Hundreds of rebels were executed in the cold villages of Yorkshire and Durham. Their bodies were left hanging at crossroads as a warning to other Catholics. This is the court Elizabeth holds in 1570. Beautiful, lethal, and hungry. At a major feast, the kitchens here will feed 600 people at one sitting. The kitchens at Hampton Court alone cover 36,000 square feet, more floor space than most modern houses. To get to the Queen's table, you have to walk through those kitchens first. Almost no modern person would survive that walk. The kitchens of Hampton Court Palace. 6 o'clock in the evening. The boiling house. The first thing you notice is the heat. 6 open fireplaces stand in a row down the length of the kitchen. Each is large enough to roast a whole ox. Iron spits cross the hearths from end to end. The fires have been burning since before dawn. The bricks behind them are blackened with soot. In front of each fireplace stands a boy. Spit boys are the lowest-ranking workers in the royal kitchen. They are children, aged 8 to 14, recruited from the families of palace servants. Their job is to turn the spit by hand for 8 to 12 hours at a stretch, keeping the meat rotating above the dripping pan. They wear almost nothing. Shirts and breeches in this heat would kill them. The fire is 2 feet from their face. Sweat runs off them constantly. A contemporary description from a Greater Tudor household records the spit boys interlarding their own grease to help the drippings. Their sweat ran into the roasting pan, mixed with the meat juices, and ended up by the gravy boat on the high table. The drippings became the sauce. The boys were not allowed to leave the hearth during their shift. Cardinal Wolsey's regulations for Hampton Court, drawn up half a century earlier and still enforced under Elizabeth, specifically forbade kitchen staff from urinating in or near the cooking fires. The rule existed because it was a documented recurring problem. The same regulations forbade kitchen staff from working naked. Beyond the roasting hearths is the larder. The game birds for tonight's second course have been hanging there for 14 days. The Tudor cookbooks call this state well hung. The aim, they write, is for the bird to smell sweet. The modern term is partial decomposition. Out the larder door, across the buttery, up the back stairs, and into the Great Hall. The Great Hall, Whitehall Palace, 600 candles, 600 voices. The smell hits you first. The floor is covered in rushes, bundles of dried reeds, ankle deep, layered with lavender, mint, and rose petals to mask the air. Household records show the rushes at major palaces were changed every 8 to 10 days. Period accounts of similar Tudor halls describe the rushes nonetheless reeking of, in the exact phrase, the leakages of men, cats and dogs. Urine, vomit, food scraps, dropped grease, dog mess. Mastiffs and hunting hounds are allowed under the tables to catch scraps thrown by the diners. There are dozens of them in the hall tonight. They lift their legs against bench supports. They squat near the kitchen doors. Servants clean what they see. They cannot see most of it. The mess works deeper into the rushes. A diner drops a chicken bone. 2 dogs fight for it under the bench. The bone splinters between their teeth. The dogs eat the splinters and the rushes around them. You sit on a bench. You have a trencher in front of you. You have a knife. You have a spoon. You do not have a napkin. Napkins were issued at the high table. Silver bowls of rosewater were also passed between courses, so guests could rinse their fingers between dishes. Below the rank of yeoman, no napkin. Diners wiped greasy hands on the bread, on their own clothing, or on the dropping cloth. A strip of linen hung over the front edge of the bench specifically for this purpose. The cloth was rarely washed. The air in the hall is a single thick atmosphere. Cooked meat, spilled ale. 600 bodies sweating in heavy wool. Smoke from the wall torches. Smoke from the central hearth. The dogs. The rushes. The breath of 600 guests with mouths full of decay. You sit down. The food begins to arrive. The first course begins. 16 servants enter the hall in single file. Each carries a covered silver dish on his shoulder. The yeoman of the pantry leads them. He stops at the high table, sets a manchet roll of pure white bread at the Queen's place, and arranges her knife and spoon. The dishes uncover in front of you. A menu recorded for the Queen's accession anniversary in 1576. 6 years from now, but representative of how Elizabeth's court eats in 1570, lists the first remove as beef, mutton, veal, swan or goose, capon, coney rabbit, fruit, custard, fritters, fine manchet, ale and wine. Earlier, Tudor royal menus list up to 15 dishes in the first remove and 9 more in the second. 24 main dishes at one sitting. By weight, an elite Tudor diet ran as high as 3/4 meat. Vegetables were considered peasant food. Borde and Cogan, the period's most influential English physicians, both warned that raw vegetables engendered ill humours in noble bodies. Cabbage, leeks, onions, root vegetables. These were what kitchen scullions ate, not what the Queen ate. Henry VIII, Elizabeth's father, suffered chronic bladder stones directly linked by modern analysis to his meat-only diet. Gout, kidney stones and chronic constipation are documented across Tudor noble households. The Queen's table inherits his medical risk profile. The trencher is a slab of 3-day-old stale bread cut horizontally. The bottom half sits in front of you to absorb the grease and juice. The spoon you noticed earlier is pewter. We will come back to that. Your knife you may have brought from home. You do not have a fork. The fork is still considered Italian affectation in 1570. It will not enter English elite dining until Thomas Coriat brings one back from Venice in 1611. You eat the meat with your fingers, you wipe them on the dropping cloth between bites, and the meat is not what actually kills you. The next thing is 5 things so far. Spit boys, urination ban, dog mess in the rushes, 3/4 meat, no fork. Drop a comment. Which one shocked you most? Now, back to the table. The next thing was killing the Queen herself. In 1570, sugar is not food. Sugar is a status symbol. A single pound of refined sugar costs an English labourer his entire week's wage. Imports come by sea from the Portuguese plantations on Madeira and the Spanish plantations on the Canary Islands. Both islands run on enslaved African labour. The cost of producing the sugar in human terms is something no Elizabethan court will discuss. Elizabeth herself is a documented addict. She's obsessed with marchpane, the marzipan paste of almonds and sugar. She drinks syllabubs, wine or cider whipped with milk and sugar, at every supper. She eats candied violets like other people eat raisins. She uses sugar at every course of every meal she takes. A few years after this dinner, in 1597, the French ambassador André Hureau will describe her teeth as very yellow and unequal. A year later, in 1598, the German traveller Paul Hentzner will write in the exact period phrase, "Her teeth black, a fault the English seem to suffer from because of their great use of sugar." The cruel detail is that the Queen polishes her teeth daily with a paste of honey and sugar. She believes it freshens her breath and shows her wealth. She's rubbing the substance that is rotting her teeth directly into her teeth twice a day. By the late 1570s and into the 1580s, courtiers around her start to blacken their own teeth on purpose. Soot, charcoal, ink. They want to signal that they can afford the sugar that is killing the Queen. Ordinary peasants in the same period have relatively healthy teeth. They cannot afford the sugar that is killing the rich. And the sugar was only the start of what was actually in your cup. Back to the spoon, and to the cup beside it. Both are pewter. Pewter in 1570 is an alloy of tin and lead. Tudor pewter is typically 90% tin. The remaining 10% was in most cases lead, added because lead made the alloy softer, easier to cast, and cheaper. The wealthier you were, the more pewter passed through your meal. At Elizabeth's high table, the Queen herself eats from silver gilt. The nobles immediately around her use polished silver. Every other diner in the hall, the gentry, the senior household, the gentlemen pensioners, eats and drinks from pewter. Every meal, every cup, every spoon, dosing them with lead. The wine in your cup makes it worse. Acidic foods leach lead from pewter at higher rates. Tudor wines are heavily acidic. So are the vinegar-based sauces and the verjuice that comes with most meat courses. Hot food extracts more lead than cold. Most of what you eat tonight has been kept warm. There is one further detail. Tudor wines were often sweetened with a syrup called sapper, made by boiling grape juice in lead-lined vessels. The boiling pulled lead acetate, a compound the period called sugar of lead, directly into the syrup. Sapper was then mixed into the cup. The sweetness you taste right now was added the same way. And then there are the cups themselves. For the historian Alison Weir, writing on Henry VIII's household, the same institutional habits continued under Elizabeth, cites a contemporary complaint that the cups in the hall were old, black and rusty, scrubbed clean only once a year. The cup at your hand has a year's worth of dried wine residue, bacterial growth, and lead patina inside it. Chronic lead exposure causes fatigue, irritability, memory loss, kidney failure, infertility, and seizures. And while the cup was poisoning you from the inside, the room itself was poisoning you from the outside. Look up from the cup. Look at the face of the woman across from you. Her skin is pale and smooth, almost too smooth, pale enough to suggest she has never seen the sun, almost ceramic in the candlelight. Men, she has not been born with this skin. She has built it. The cosmetic is called Venetian ceruse, white lead mixed with vinegar to make a thick paste. She applies it to her face, her neck, her hands. She applies it again over the layer already there. Most noblewomen in Elizabeth's court do not wash the previous day's ceruse off before adding the next. Lead absorbs through the skin, daily. By the time she is 40, her hair will fall out. Her skin will develop sores. She will lose teeth. If she is of childbearing age, she may miscarry repeatedly. Period accounts describe noblewomen whose skin literally peeled away from years of lead application. Elizabeth herself uses Venetian ceruse later in her reign. Modern medical analysis of her deteriorating health, the irritability, the tremors, the tooth loss, the bouts of memory failure, is consistent with chronic lead poisoning from the cosmetics, the wine, the pewter, and the sapper combined. There are other compounds in the room. Mercury, sold by apothecaries as a skin treatment for blemishes, is rubbed onto faces and necks across the hall tonight. Mercury causes tremors, kidney failure, and organ damage. The air itself is a chemical compound. Hundreds of bodies in heavy wool, layered with perfume over unwashed skin, smoke, cooking vapors, the breath of the room. There is no ventilation beyond the high stained glass windows along the walls and a louvered roof vent. You can leave the hall, you can leave the palace, but the damage doesn't leave you. 10 years later, you are still alive, but you are not well. The damage from a single Tudor noble feast is small. The damage from 10 years of them is not. By the time you are 45, your joints ache so badly some mornings that you cannot walk. The physicians call it gout. Modern medicine calls it the result of a decade of high purine meat with no vegetables to buffer it. Henry VIII had it. Most of his courtiers had it. So do you. You pass blood in your urine. There is a kidney stone moving. If it lodges, the only treatment available in 1570 is surgical extraction. A barber surgeon cutting through your lower abdomen with no anesthesia. The recorded death rate for the procedure is around 1 in 3. By 40, you have lost half your teeth. The remaining are abscessin. An abscess in 1570 is a slow death sentence. There are no professional dentists in England. Tooth pulling is handled by barber surgeons, the same men who cut hair and bleed patients. No sterilization, no anesthetic. Elizabeth herself, by her 60s, refuses to have a rotten tooth removed, until the Bishop of London volunteers to have one of his own teeth pulled in her presence to prove the pain can be endured. The story is recorded by 2 independent contemporaries. Modern forensic analysis of Tudor noble skeletons shows lead concentrations in the bones comparable to severe industrial poisoning today. The lead is permanent. It does not leave the body. It accumulates with every meal you ate close to the Queen. This is the paradox of the Tudor table. The peasant ate pottage from a wooden bowl, drank small beer from a wooden cup, ate dark bread and root vegetables, and statistically outlived you by years. The closer you sat to the Queen, the more lead, sugar, salt, and meat passed through your body. The further from the Queen, the longer your life. Whitehall Palace, 11 at night. The great chamber empties. The Queen withdraws to her privy chambers with 2 ladies-in-waiting. The musicians stop. The torches are extinguished one by one along the long walls. The servants begin to clear the tables. The trenchers go to the almoner. He collects all leftover bread, half-eaten meat, and broken dishes, and carries them to the kitchen gates, where the poor of London are already waiting. They have been waiting since dusk. The grease-soaked 3-day-old stale bread that absorbed your meat juice tonight is the only meal those people will eat, and many of them will outlive the courtiers who threw the trenchers away. At the high table, silver gilt. The Queen herself, drinking from gold cups carried in from her privy chamber. The high nobles, polished silver. The middle tables, pewter. The household, pewter. The trencher, beneath your meat, 3-day-old bread. The wooden bowl at the kitchen gate, eating the same bread, but not the lead, not the sugar, not the meat. The further from the Queen, the longer your life. That was the math of the Tudor table. Elizabeth I ruled the most powerful court in Northern Europe. The wealth that brought her that power, the silver, the sugar, the spice, the swan, was slowly and silently killing her. And it killed the people who sat closest to her first. If you want more buried history like this, the parts the documentaries skip, the rooms the cameras don't go into, subscribe to Worlds Before Us. Every video reconstructs a single moment of the past and shows you what living through it would actually have felt like. The next one is already on screen.